Ooh, now we're live. We're live here in the hashtag BGP Mail Satchel. We're kind of springing this on the 333 Club. We're going to post this in a regular episode, which of course is, audio only. But we're going live. We're in the 333 Club, and joining us is Captain Lucky Charms himself, the Ginger of Watauga County, Captain Ginger of Watauga County, the one, the only CEO of the Boone Area Chamber of Commerce. He is David Jackson. What's up, DJ?
How are you?
Whatever, man. I'm surprised you didn't say
whatever.
Why am
I on this deal, man? We didn't even lose.
I just wanted to have fun. Why not?
Well,
I'm out of my element.
I think all of America lost last night, DJ. And so did the Reds today. So that's good enough.
13 innings.
I'm not ready to talk about baseball yet.
Why? What's up?
Today was a tough day.
Did the Cubs lose?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Blew a golden opportunity.
What happened?
That's all right. You Darvish on the mound tomorrow, man. We'll bounce back. Back.
Good for you. So we thought exactly to DJ's point. He's feeling a little hurt. His feelings are a little hurt that the only time we ever want him on the podcast is seemingly to make everybody feel better. But, we said, why not just have some fun tonight? We don't have a game on Saturday. Might not have a game next week either. But whatever. We're gonna have DJ on. We're going to have the Leprechaun on, and we're going to have some fun. So, Charles, I know you have the Satchel on Facebook on the 333 Club pulled up, I know. So let's go, and let's have DJ join in on the fun.
Sounds good to me.
Let's do it.
Leading it off. Jason Hutchins, what is your first memory of App State football? I don't know if I know DJ's story about this.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
I mean, my first real memory, like stuck in my head memory, because I saw him play at Wake. But I there was a stand. Wake was bad, App was good. That's kind of how it was in the 90s. But my first real memory of App came in November of 1995. I was in high school, had just gotten my App State acceptance letter. The funny thing was I was really upset because that night I was the PA announcer for our high school football team, and we lost in the first round of the playoffs. So I get home and I'm just pissed. And my mom's like, "You got a letter from Appalachian?" I'm like, "Whatever. I don't care." I opened it up, and of course, it's like the acceptance letter, dearly beloved. Your GPA was just good enough. Come on up the hill. And so my dad says, he gets home from doing the news, and he's like, "Hey, we got tickets to go to the game tomorrow since you got accepted. Let's go up there, blah, blah, blah." So we went up there, and that was the App Western game of 1995. I think the temperature dropped about 30 degrees between the time the team ran off the field and kickoff. Remember, they did senior day, and the table blew away at midfield that they were holding all the, whatever the awards were or whatever. And I was like, so I'm coming to school here. All right. But yeah, there was snow on the ground before it ended. And like so many times, App, won the game going away. I think on that day, they gave a Mountaineer a chance, and Scott Satterfield was able to start at quarterback.
Wow.
Like you did all of the other games in 95 when they boat raced people. But yeah, it was fun.
Is it boat race or motorboat? Can we get a clarification on that? Can we get a ruling on Joe Sullivan? Charles, do we have a ruling?
We'll get a ruling later. I've dialed it in. We'll see if it's down the thread. Okay. I remember that game, DJ. That was the only App game I left early for a win. I was 14. But I remember going to that game and thinking, I think we got, and it was like pouring rain, right? Like it was
pouring rain.
Sheets.
It was pretty. And then the rain came and a front came through with it, and there was snow on the ground before it was over. Yeah.
So we missed the snow, but we got our apples and our bullets down at on 321. But
was the landscaping as nice as it is now at your tailgate site back in 95?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I wasn't even thinking about looking over there in 1995. I probably was just.
I hear the mulch was epic.
I'm sure The mulch is epic and will continue to be epic. Luckily, we don't need it.
Yeah,
Luckily, it's not an issue.
True.
AJ, your first memory?
That's a great question. I wish I knew the opponent, but my two uncles are App alumni, and I think I was 12. I'm pretty sure this would have been 2001. I think. I remember it was raining, and we stood in the student section. I remember that, and I also remember I've never heard so much profanity in all my life up to that point. We were among some true student section airplane bottle smugglers, and I've never heard. I mean, it was like it was unlike anything I'd ever heard. So, but I don't remember who won or anything. I was 12. My uncles were like, hey, my grandparents used to have a place in the mountains, and they're like, hey, we want to go to the game. Do you want to go with us? And I was like, yeah, sure. And it rained. It's always like really wet and cold. That's what I remember. However,
2001 was it early in the season or late in the season?
I think it was late in the season. Late.
Charles, I think we should play Guess That Game.
We could. Let's pull up that.
I've already got it.
I'm already on it.
All right. So 2001,
Okay.
late in the season. I know.
App used to be able to beat Liberty. That's interesting. Anyway, go ahead.
Parents Weekend was always earlier. That was usually like ETSU or somebody like Citadel. So later in the season, I'm thinking we're looking at like Chattanooga Western.
Yeah, we beat Chattanooga pretty soundly. It was right before Halloween, and I remember that was the year after Chattanooga beat App in Chattanooga in 2000. That train whistle still is blaring somewhere. But I remember that being kind of a revenge game kind of thing. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the weather was pretty crappy that day. I'm guessing that Alex saw the Apps play Chattanooga. That's my guess.
That
Final
sounds
answer.
about right. I'm gonna go with it.
The first game that I remember how the game went, who won, and everything else was 2006 against Montana State, and Murphy Post was in the. He's the Armani Edwards of the student section, and he got into Marcosis LeBlanc or something, one of their wide receivers, got into his head. I watched it in pregame. He had the whole student section, I hate to say cursing at it. It was epic. And that kid ended up dropping like 5 passes, and it was pretty incredible. But that was the first game since I had been like this kid that was just being rained on in the student section, that I actually really enjoyed the game. And I had already known I was coming to App at that point. So I was kind of excited to watch a playoff game, and it was fun. So so it's a good question, but mine are a little staggered.
I don't know what my first one was, but some of my first memories were like DJ's mentioned, Wake Forest, early 90s to late 80s. I know I was at the 34-34 tie. I do know I was at that game. I think that was 88, 87, something like that. I know I was at that one, and then there was this. I do have a memory of a game where you used to be able to park on Stadium Drive. I think either that or I don't remember Bodenheimer over to the stadium, and I think we were playing Marshall, and it was like freezing rain and stuff like that. And
94 night game.
No. I remember the 94 night game. This was like I was like really young. Like this was like 80, 85, 86, 87, something like that. But I've never been able to pinpoint it on the schedule, so it may have been. I may have gotten it confused with somebody else. We may have not played Marshall. We may have played some other green team, which you can pretty much narrow those down. But I know that team we played was green.
Were you at the 94 Marshall night game, Johnny Smith interception?
Absolutely. I remember that like it just happened yesterday.
Man, that's awesome.
That's
my all-time favorite Brian Estridge radio call.
Absolutely. That's a very, very, very good one.
Yeah.
I've heard that one. That one's a good one.
Okay, question
Smith.
That's red on red crime right there, Charles. That's red on red crime.
That's
all
right.
right. That's all right.
His backyard's better than mine. It's all good.
That's a segue, or a tease maybe, to a future Saturday Evening Quarantine episode, which we may have to revive here in the coming weekends.
We only bring that out when it's necessary. might become necessary.
Bryant Barbary. Odd question, but a question nonetheless. What is the ratio of skunks to deer on App State's campus?
Ooh.
Way more deer. Way more deer.
Deer.
There's actually a group in town trying to get an ordinance passed to allow deer hunting inside the town limits. There's so many deer in town right now.
I
wish I was kidding about that, but that is true.
I know. I saw a fawn this morning coming down Stadium Drive, so they're out there. This time of the year, there's always something random in my yard that just shows up out of nowhere. Some big nut or walnut or something like that, and it looks like it's just been eaten. And I don't know what's eating it, but it's the deers. And then question 2, completely different. Also, if you were a Jedi, how would you use Force to impact an App State football game? AJ, this one is for you.
I wouldn't, because the Jedi wouldn't cheat and use the Force. That would be that would not be the way. This is the way. This is not the way. That is not the way. But if I were to be so tempted, I would slightly. Well, how about this? I would go back and I would secure the ball in Brian Quick's hands in 2009. That's how I would do it. That's what I would do.
Now that I know what that means.
I think I would rather use the Force to force ice in cups.
Create like Force ice in the cups.
Yes, yes. Ice in stadium cups with the Force.
These cups don't ice themselves. Is that what we were saying here?
May the cups be with you.
So it is a motorboat, and we're going to Joe Sullivan at Captain Quick in the thread. Hey guys, what does Louisiana start with? Because that's what we're handing out next week.
You broke the rules. I said no Louisiana.
Break the rules. No Louisiana. So we move on, but we got to mention it because we have to mention the rule break.
Sure.
James Burchett also breaking the rules, but we'll mention him. What are you most concerned with about the UL matchup?
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that if we get to talk about that.
Moving on, Michael Carney. Finally, a question that is where people read, more than just the headline. What role can Deshaun Davis play for us as a slot receiver? I would guess moving forward. Any ideas? So go ahead, Charles.
Yeah.
You're like, who's Deshaun Davis? I'm kidding.
Spoiler alert here. Deshaun Davis in my public speaking class.
How well does he speak?
Smooth Davis.
Good.
As he's more commonly known to in the class.
Oh, look at this. Smooth.
Yep, Smooth is the nickname. I was joking with him on the first day of class. I told him he had to play in a game before he could take a nickname like that. But no, he's a good public speaker.
Good.
He did we have our second speech Monday, and his first one was very good. Talked about a nonprofit business that he is in the process of starting to help other folks that are looking to make the transition to college from his area. So
nice. He's from is he from Miami? Where's he from?
Yeah, Florida. Yeah, somewhere down there. Once you get past Orlando, it's all the same city, pretty much, except where the Everglades are. It's like a lake. It's kind of like that pond in Charlotte. Everything around it, Charlotte.
Like Norman or like Wiley?
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree with your assessment of everything below south of Orlando is the same. But I understand what you're saying. And yes, he's from Florida, and that's all I needed to know. I didn't need to know your Florida ignorant commentary, insulting my semi-adopted home state, kind of almost.
Just like last night, we did not answer the question, but we got some information, so that's good enough. Scott Rawls, do you think the North End Zone seats, preferably the seats, club area, not the whole facility, will be finished by October 7th? No. If not, will they be finished by October 22nd? Probably not. If they are finished, will they let people sit there, or will they try to isolate everyone to the east and the west stands? I have to assume that some of the lucky 7, are you one of those, DJ, are in those North End Zone seats.
The lucky 7.
Part of the 7%.
Oh,
Super 7.
Yeah, got that. No, probably not. I'm back in the deer stand this week. No, I would agree based on the eyeball test and chatter around the construction process. It doesn't sound like they're going to be done.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Let's be realistic. 20 end of the year. I guess the question is, for
you can make the
if
argument. I mean, I
we
realize
would allow seating.
I realize people, have paid money for those seats and they want to get at them. And I would hope that if they ever got to a decision like this, there would be some refund chatter that would come around there. But I mean, you can make the argument for this being a year not to even worry about it and just go finish the building and get it done. And, you're talking about 2 home games at the most that you're going to be able to use those things if it's done in November. And then do you want to start a building like that in a kind of 3/4 speed type way? I mean, I think that, rushed and not the experience. But on the other hand, if you've paid money for it, you probably feel differently. But it's been slow going here lately for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of that work is hard, man. It seems like it takes a building like that. The athletic center was like that. We had all these dreams of July 1, then it was July 15th, then it was August 1, then it was, 5 minutes before the McNeese game started. We finally got in there, and it was all the details stuff, punch list stuff. It just takes forever. So I hate it for them because I know they had plans to have that thing rolling by now, but obviously that's not the case.
I think this is a pretty good positive from all this, or at least a perk, I guess you would say, is that if Luke Combs is able to come in early May in 2021, those seat holders might have something available for them that would be a really cool place to watch that concert. So that may be the first event in that facility, fully completed. Sit down, Joey Sullivan taking a second swing here. Is it just me, or should teams have to play before getting ranked poll further proves that the P5 bias by kicking out deserving G5s? So I guess what we're talking about here is teams that are now starting their season a little bit later than teams that have already started and played a few games. We've discussed it a little bit. We can go into further detail now.
I don't think it'll ever happen. I mean, you had your chance, right? You had your chance for the nation to have to watch G5 games. And they obviously didn't think enough about it to keep those teams that were worthy of consideration one week in the poll the next week. So it's not going to happen.
We knew it on the post game. We were like, Louisiana's not going to be ranked next week because of this ruling. And it's like, as soon as they get these P5s back to, throwing the balls around the practice field, it's like, let's rank these guys, deserving or not.
I just don't think that those national writers pay any attention. And I mean, we've called them out for that in the past. And I know we've talked about it before, but they had the opportunity and so many of them were waxing poetic, but you knew the minute the narrative changed to, G5 football is not that bad. That was code for, but when the P5 guys get back, we'll forget about this. And they have. I mean, I don't necessarily believe that Louisiana is a ranked team. I just don't, but they probably deserve more consideration than they are currently getting, I guess.
Yeah, and I'll say not a lot of app people like it when I say this, and I know DJ says similar things, but when it comes to being in the same quote unquote league, App State is FBS and LSU is FBS, but it's like we're the same in like name only. It's just it's a different plane of existence. Resource-wise, brand recognition-wise, it just is. So, I mean, I don't get up in arms when Louisiana gets kicked out because Ohio State declares they're going to start playing in October or whatever, because I just think the reality of it is that's the reality of it. It just is. So I don't get upset about it. I'm happy to watch my team. I don't care about those other guys, but, it makes it that much more special when App gets ranked. So
I agree. The unlevel playing field, whether it's budgets or teams or talent, and then when you actually have a situation like one that just existed, where you've got teams who've played 3 games and some that haven't, I just don't think it's fair. I don't know if we'll ever see anything like that again. I hope we don't, at least. Yeah. But Brad Manning brings up a good point. Responding to Joey, says he'd love to see a moratorium on rankings until the 3rd week. This would be a huge step in eliminating the overranking of the same teams year after year. I think that's a great point. I mean, if you're going to have playoff standings not come out till a certain point of the year, what's the point of having something, rankings come out in the middle of August besides just being able to write articles?
Right. We used to argue the same point about FCS rankings back in the day, especially because the pool of people that really were truly knowledgeable of that was even smaller than what we're talking about right now. It's like, what makes you think that you can properly understand the value of a recruiting class at that level of graduating talent, developing talent, so many of them diamond in the rough type guys? How do you truly know? And let's be honest, App State was quite overranked many times in the FCS, especially in that 2001, 2002, 2003 reign. As high as number 2 in the country a couple of times during that stretch, and that was just not the case. But it was name recognition. It was the same exact reason why all these guys are like that in the preseason now. So I think that would be a huge step forward. The only schools that would complain about it are schools, quite honestly, like G5s that sneak in there that are looking for the recognition to boost the brand for a few weeks. But I think 4 weeks would be a great thing. And then you rank on what you see, not what you think you'll see.
Yeah.
How many teams were there in FCS when we were there, DJ?
Depending on the year, like roughly 120. There were a few that moved around, and that number is much less now.
Right.
But yeah, roughly 120 is a number you could throw out.
I'm gonna interject. I'm sorry, Charles.
You're fine. I'm just gonna say that probably the talent disparity, between the disparity between number 1 in FCS and the bottom of FCS probably greater than it was in FBS. Would you agree?
To a degree. I mean, I think before you started seeing the mass exodus, I mean, you could make the argument that 1 through 20. So many of those years we did those old football playoff shows. Man, you could start arguing the merits of 1 through 16, and there were some years it was like, man, there are not enough slots because there were really good teams, and somebody's going to get left out because of AQs. And then there were years toward the end of that run where it was like, man, how in the world are they filling out a 16-team field? There's like 8 teams that are good, and just throw the rest of them away. Let's just give everybody a bye and call it a tournament. But yeah, I mean, I think that has drastically changed now. I mean, you look at what the product was last year and compare that to App's worst year, and in terms of competability within FCS and App's 2004 team is, in my estimation, a mid-tier playoff team without question in today's FCS landscape, and that's just not right.
So I'm gonna take a slight detour here off the satchel now that DJ's talking about early App State teams and being overranked based on the reputation. I think looking back, I think 2010 and 2011 were pretty, especially 2011 was a really overranked, overhyped App team. I'm not like thrilled saying that, but DJ, in your years of App State football, what's the most overrated team?
Ooh, great question. Most overrated App team. Man.
Most overrated.
Let's define overrated. Are we talking about overrated as their season ended up playing out, or overrated as in were hyped way too much from the start and never panned out?
Ooh, okay.
I could answer that 2 different ways with 2 different teams.
Actually, so I'm actually not to like whatever, but I'd actually like to know both answers of both of those scenarios.
Okay, well, so the team that in my mind never lived up to the hype and just kind of left us holding the bag was 1999. That team should have been way better than it was. And I don't know whether it was the quarterback controversy-ish deal going on or what, but they could just never get a roll on. They lost that game to Auburn. They shouldn't have lost. Beat Georgia Southern at home. You thought that was kind of the turning point because that was probably Georgia Southern's best team in my estimation. But,
yeah, I agree.
But yeah, 99 was the one that leaves you wanting more.
So there's a lot of people, including me, that aren't as familiar with 99. Can you rattle off some of the key players or key figures?
Oh boy, let's have fun.
Yeah, you're looking at Daryl Skinner at wide receiver. You had you had Daniel Jeremiah and David Reeves were in year 2 of the quarterback back and forth. Burchett kind of came into the mix a little bit in 99. He had some mop up time. We beat Georgia Southern, lost a miserable game at Furman. That was the way that team played. It was like for every good game they played, they'd either nearly lose or stump their toe in a situation that, I mean, losing to Florida A&M. I mean, that was another game. Now the Rattlers were athletic and they were talented, but that App team was one of the top 4 seeds in the playoffs. They should have never lost that game. And they came out flat. That team often came out flat and just never had they didn't have that figure like a Richie Williams who kept everybody accountable and kept the eye on the prize. They just felt like they could get by on talent alone, in my opinion, and they just never could quite get off on a roll. So that was
Troy Albee,
Razak. Yeah, Wilcox was that the year that Wilcox 98 was the year that Wilcox couldn't play. So 99 he would have played for the first time.
Defensively, it was a good defense.
You had Jeffries in his prime then.
Ryan Watson, John Menino, that defensive
Wes
line
Hunter.
was, very good.
Corey Hall.
Corey Hall was played in the NFL.
I mean, you go back and look at the talent on that team. The NFL players, there were a ton of them, and also just you're talking about All-American after All-American. I mean, through those squads. Tim Ramseur. You remember Ramseur was he transferred in from NC State. He was a stud on defense. They had no business not being in at least the semifinals of the playoffs that year.
Mm-hmm.
And
so what team would you maybe compare that to, a more modern team that most, maybe younger people that weren't around in the 90s? Because there's not a lot of content about 1999, unfortunately. But what modern-ish team would you maybe compare that to? And maybe there's not a way to do that.
It's easy to say 11, but I think that's when that was the first team where you really started to see the downfall and where we got into that lull recruiting and just started not winning those battles. I mean, it's hard to say 10 was like that because 9 was so strong, but you lost, some signature players off that team, especially Armani. And it's also hard to say that a team that started out 8-0 or whatever we were, before going to Georgia Southern, underachieved. I think maybe they could have been a little bit better. Maybe a little bit more built for success late. That was the great thing about even 07, certainly 05, 06 was a little bit different, but even 07, that team caught a second wind late in the year. That was kind of our MO. It was like, all right, we're gonna get out hot. We'll have that little stretch. We'll lose a game we're not supposed to, or what have you, and then we're gonna get hot late and ride that momentum on through the playoffs. So 9 was kind of like that after the Georgia Southern loss. Or I'm thinking the wrong year, but anyway, 09 was a little bit like that. I felt like 10 was the year that was set up, and they just never, they just didn't finish the job. In that regard, ran into a good team in the playoffs, but that team was better than they played.
Okay, answer the second part of that overrated question.
What was that?
I was going to say 2002, 2003 ish. Those teams are that's what we were coming off of, the 99, 2000 kind of greatness and good teams, and it was that steady decline, like one less win every year until 2004. And I just know that there was some games we left out there. It was one of those years we didn't make the playoffs. I think it was 2002. We were 7-4, went down to Wofford. Should have beat them.
3 was the year we didn't make it. 2 we did. We lost to Maine.
Okay.
Over Chet
2
in
was
the end zone through that pick.
2 was my senior year. I should remember that. 3, I guess 3 is the one I'm thinking about though.
Yeah, 3 is the one.
So you say 2003 was the one that. What was the second scenario? The one that maybe we look back on and think it was a good team, but really wasn't. Wasn't that the second scenario?
I think that was the first scenario.
Oh, okay. So what was the second one that you gave? It was a couple minutes ago.
I thought you did it.
Yeah.
The team that was.
It was a team that was overhyped and never lived up to the hype versus team that was good that never realized their full potential.
Right. Okay. Who's the never lived up to the hype team?
I thought we just did that one.
Oh, I didn't know DJ.
Yeah, I would agree with 3. 3 was a better team than they played. Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I thought that was an interesting question. I'm sorry. I did not mean to derail the satchel, but I did. So my bad.
It's okay. Nick Gord, y'all are casting a movie that captures App's transition to FBS. Who plays the following 10 people? I will be terrible at this because I don't watch movies, but who plays Jerry Moore in a movie? Who's the actor?
Nick Nolte.
Who's Scott Satterfield?
Scott Satterfield is Matthew McConaughey from Contact.
Who is Sean Clark?
Oh,
Hoss
man.
from Bonanza. Who was that
DJ
guy?
Khaled.
DJ Khaled. What? Who plays the Jerry Moore Nick Nolte thing? That's terrible. I'm gonna say
Yeah. What do you want?
Other-
I mean, he's not that old. Like Ernest Borgnine or what? I mean,
Yeah.
no, it could be
Others that were
the
considered.
Smucker's jelly guy. What are you getting at? Was Nick Nolte not old enough?
I just don't know. Nick Nolte just seems a little I don't know. Anyway, who was the next one? We got Sean Clark was
Sherry Everts, Taylor Lamb, Ronald Blair, John Law, Noah Hannon, Zach Thompson. Anyone else you would think of that stands out?
Sherry Everts. So I think someone
I
someone in the comments said Jane Lynch. I think that's good, but I actually think that Joan Cusack would be a better Sherry Everts.
Oh,
What do you think, DJ?
Yeah. I feel the body tall. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I was thinking, like, if you truly do this though, remember you got to take these characters and spice them up a little bit. So, like,
Yeah.
I think Scott Satterfield would have been really well served to be a younger Nick Cage, just a little bit crazy. If we could have made Sat just a little bit nuts, like the offensive guru with his hair on fire.
How about
in a similar vein? I think Sherry Everett's Kathy Bates. Where she's got a little bit of that, kind of Southern, powerful woman thing going on.
I like Joan Cusack because
Kathy Bates in primary colors.
How about Nicolas Cage as Satterfield from The Rock? I think it's fair. I think it's a fair analysis there. Now,
As long as John Travolta could play John Wiley.
okay, that's it. Oh my God, this would be so great. Now, what about you? Would be Danny Bonaducci?
Me? Conor McGregor, man. Come on. Let's move on.
That's it.
You're the dude from
boy.
Game of Thrones.
The dude from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, the guy. I've
Couple
got his
dudes.
my kids bought me a pop from that guy in Game of Thrones.
Bought you a
one of the little Funko Pop.
Peter Dinklage?
I don't know who it is. It's some red bearded guy.
Little person?
It looks like me. It sits on my desk at work.
I love that answer. It looks like me. All right, Brad Manning. How many season ticket holders do you anticipate will be allowed next week? So we've done the math. It's assuming a 30,000 seat arena venue, whatever you want to call it, give or take, probably take a few. The math is 2,100. So best stab at it, guys. We might actually even know. I don't even know if we want to even disclose that, but let's just act like we don't.
I'm gonna say 0. I don't think any fans will be at the game on Wednesday because I don't think we'll have a game, and that's not inside. No one's telling me blah blah blah. I didn't think we would play last week, and I don't. Do we know anything? Do we know anything about tests at this point? Have they released anything?
Not since last Friday.
Okay, so that tells me that we're not going to play because they wait until the very absolute last minute for bad news.
They don't do that stuff every day, though. I mean, they don't make those kind of announcements unless they absolutely need to.
When it gets a little testy, I guess you could say it's poor pun. But if you're following the dashboard, it's not as pretty as it was a week ago. Let's put it like that. And
I'm
that's
just bracing
student population, right?
I'm just bracing myself for disappointment. I'm sorry, Brad, but I don't want to be heartbroken. So I'm already planning on being heartbroken.
I think you should play a third. 2,100 divided by 3.
7. Yeah.
You got 700 students, 700 season ticket holders, 700 donors in the suites. High level people that were there last week too, apparently.
And some parents who would also like to go somewhere.
I drove down Stadium Drive. I was cutting across town during the game. I thought it'd be just interesting to go down there. I was amazed at the number of people sitting up against the fence outside.
Yeah,
they put it on TV a couple times.
Yeah.
If I'd have known they weren't going to arrest me and throw me in jail, I would have been there.
Hey, let's backtrack for a second. Nathan King comes with Robert Duvall to play Jerry Moore. That is absolutely 100% correct.
There you go. That's
absolutely 100% correct. But Robert Duvall from Days of Thunder as Jerry Moore. He's got to have a little bit of that. Yes. Nathan King.
Ice cream.
Yes.
Wow.
Can
I
definitely
don't
see
know.
Jerry.
I don't know what I could do for Nathan right now. Like, I don't know what I can send him a koozie or something. I don't know what I can do.
That's koozie worthy for sure.
Robert Duvall is so unbelievably perfect. And in the Days of Thunder, Robert Duvall is unbelievable. Perfect.
Most perfect thing I've heard all day right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cameron Fagala, the likelihood of basketball getting into some sort of preseason tournament. That's tough because of all the things that are going on. It looks like a lot of these leagues,
those pod things or whatever
Yeah.
they're talking about. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
so-
ETSU's trying to have one.
a lot of these leagues are basically saying we're going to have a lot of conference games, 18, 20, whatever, and then like 4 or 5 others. And I don't know if your 4 or 5 others are going to count for some type of, kind of deal like you're talking about, DJ.
Well, like I mean, so you got Asheville's hosting Maui. What's the one up in South Dakota now?
Yeah, is that the Myrtle? Is it the Myrtle Beach tournament? Is the
Maybe
Myrtle
I
Beach
don't know.
tournament?
It's
I
one
don't
of the
even
big
know.
ones. Duke is
Yeah.
going to the one I think in South Dakota, but they've been talking about teams that have like Johnson City, for example. I know they've kicked it around over there because they've got multiple facilities that they could stage. You could bring like 8 teams that could bus in. You don't have to worry a huge deal about travel, and you got 3 venues or so that you could play over the course of a few days and get some non-conference games in. I guess I just wonder at the mid-major level, why do you care? Because it's not like I just think that's a wasted expense because you're not going to play in a non-conference situation in that kind of situation because it's not like you're pulling in a Wake Forest to balance out Campbell and Newberry and whatever. You're going to be playing like teams, like RPI teams. So it gains you nothing. You're going to go through a ton of expense, ton of testing, ton of rigmarole at the end of a semester to keep your guys around to play a bunch of games that are nice to put on a record, but they're ultimately not going to do anything for you come tournament time. You're in a 1-bid league. It's going to be a 1-bid league, whether you play in the Johnson City Classic or not. And I just think it's concentrate on conference play, maybe extend some conference games or something like that. But I feel like it's just a wasted opportunity.
You can play three teams ranked in some type of 8-man tournament, 8-team tournament, beat them all. If you lose in the semifinals of the Sun Belt, you're not going.
And you're also not going to find a team that's good enough to be willing to go into a neutral court situation with all of that chaos and say, yeah we'll play somebody that's pretty decent. No, right. You won't. You're never going to put yourself in that situation because you can't afford the loss either. I think that's a RPI disaster, and nobody will take that chance.
That's a good point.
We would love to do it, right?
Yeah,
probably not like.
I mean, it'd be cool, if you're scheduling games like you used to on the old NCAA basketball games on Nintendo. Sure, go ahead. But
it just doesn't work that way. Tournament of Champions no longer exists.
Yes. We need to get that. What was the tournament? I feel like a bad North Carolinian for not remembering the name of this thing. Deal with North Carolina and Furman and South Carolina. Was that the North South?
I think it's a Diet Pepsi Tournament of Champions. It did it in the
the Tournament of Champions. Yeah, but there was a forerunner to that. Yeah, the Tournament of Champions was good, except that one year. Well, yeah, I'm not going to get into that, but. But yeah, there was I think it was called the North South before that. And they rotated that game around, if I'm not mistaken. Like it was in Raleigh one year, Columbia, South Carolina one year. And it was all, same kind of setup as the Tournament of Champions was.
I don't remember.
That'd be cool.
Not to say it didn't exist.
Or maybe the state of North Carolina should say, hey, we're in a budget shortfall for all of our universities. So for the non-conference games, let's make all our system schools play each other.
Makes complete sense.
Go to the Charlotte. You play one pot at the Greensboro Coliseum, one pot at the Charlotte Coliseum. You throw at Western, North Carolina Central, and take ECU, and you go to Charlotte. The rest of them go to Greensboro.
Yeah, Campbell. Who cares?
All the money goes towards state academics, not NC State. I'm talking about the academic programs in the system.
Right.
Bottle that up and sell it, Alex. You can put a sticker on that bad boy.
Hey, I just read the chat. I just read the chat here, and Ryan Clark, I guess I'm a little late on this, said that DJ can be the redhead from The Walking Dead.
Don't deflect attention away from this.
That dude's way too cool to be, way too tough to be DJ.
We saw Ryan's comment, looked right past that to Nathan being the Robert Duvall guy. So Ryan, thanks for playing, but you lost. We didn't pay attention.
Yeah, because you didn't want to. You didn't want me to comment that there's no way you were cool enough to be a machete wielding machine.
I know this. I looked past it for those obvious reasons.
You're more like the guy with the mullet in The Walking Dead, the guy that lies about where they're going the whole time. Spoiler alert. Sorry. Go ahead.
Brad Manning, at the end of the season, do you think we will see 10 L's? As in Lords of Leaping, not Louisiana losing. I think the idea here is that we play Louisiana 2 more times.
Oh.
And this would be an 0-8. They'd be 0-10. I like the idea. We'll see what happens. Maybe we're setting ourselves up for spring football, and we don't know it yet. Who knows? We'll see. And then
you guys have got your pessimism clothes on tonight, man. Wow.
Who knows?
I'm just trying to keep it real. That's all I'm trying to do.
Oh, man. Steve Brooks, what are your guys' thoughts on the rest of the Sun Belt this year? As far as the way, I guess, teams are going to compete, what's it going to look like, who's going to do what? I guess looks like a pretty typical year of what we've seen, that there's 5 good teams, 5 less than good teams. I think Monroe is probably the worst team in the conference.
They're terrible.
By far. Texas State has shown, I don't know, they had some opt-outs, and their was never good in the first place. They had one of their best corners opt out this past week. Probably NFL draft pick kind of guy.
You remember, was it the year before App came to the Sun Belt? They beat Wake at Wake.
Yeah, it was a low scoring game. It was like in the teens. I was watching that game.
They beat
scared to death.
Oh God, here we go.
Yeah.
They beat Arkansas in 2012, didn't they? Pretty sure they did.
Monroe beat
Monroe was good there at the beginning of that. I remember going through that triumvirate that first year of Arkansas State, Louisiana, and Monroe.
Yeah.
In that order. And there were some in the building that thought Monroe was the better team of the 3. They were obviously intoxicated, but
we won on a field goal, that Monroe game in 2014. We barely won that game.
That's right.
Is anybody buying Coastal right now? Is it too early?
You think so? It's too early? You think so?
I'm not buying them.
I think it's too early, but I'm not buying it either.
I'm not a Jamie Chadwell guy.
Yeah. It seems like seriously though that people either are or aren't on him.
I knew DJ doesn't like Jamie Chadwell.
No. I love Tony Washington.
Yeah.
Love Tony Washington. Not so much.
I think he's a good coach though, don't you? I mean, I know you don't like him, but you don't
think he cheats.
Long-winded question here from Caleb Smith. Do you guys foresee any of the senior players on the team using their extra year of eligibility to come back next year? And do you think any of those decisions will be affected by how the team performs the rest of this season?
So
it should be interesting to see how this plays out for guys who may or may not make the NFL camps next year, and especially for the 2 senior QBs on the roster.
So I think this is going to be the biggest source of drama once the season's over, is determining what in the world are they going to do with a whole bunch of players that now have another year of eligibility. Factor that into the recruiting pipeline, playing time, scholarship dollars, who stays, who goes. Do you offer money to Zach Thomas, but you leave the other guy? Like, DJ, what do you – I want to know what you think about how this can work, because to me it seems like a nightmare.
I think you've got to be realistic, though, with the number of people that are actually going to come back.
Right.
You've got your players that may feel like, there's another moment in the sun. There's some of them that are looking to just move on. You got people going to grad school, people trying to get in, other academic pursuits, just ready to move on with your lives. Are they physically able to play? I mean, that's the end of a long road for a lot of players, and not everybody, as the NCAA commercial often tells us, not every college athlete is going to play professional sports. I think it ultimately comes down to what they think they can get out of the year, and if they're just into it. This is gonna be a hard year on everybody, no matter how it ends. And it's like, what are you signing back up for? I think a lot of it's going to be about projection of what 21 looks like. It looks like a normal year. Yeah, maybe I'll stick around and have the senior year I didn't get to have. But otherwise, take it to the house and move on with your life a little bit, I think. And then ultimately, to your point, Alex, it's going to become, once you get that number, it's going to become a balancing act for Yosef Club at a time where funds are already not where they need to be, because of all of the issues that are going on, to try to come up with the offsets for that. I think that's where the NCAA is incredibly short-sighted in this. in that they are not providing any money to the institutions to help them with that balance. You say,
Yeah.
oh, well, we're going to give you an extra year of eligibility. Well, what you're saying to those teams is we're basically taxing you. We're
Yeah.
saying that if a kid wants to come back, you've got to figure out a way to make it happen. And
Yeah.
you know what? We don't really care. That's not our problem. It's yours.
It created a massive problem for mid-majors. And in decisions like this, and this is why the NCAA is so goofy sometimes, a lot of the decisions they make disproportionately, like without any question, hurt smaller schools. Like, you know, a big SEC school, Texas A&M might be able to pick up that way easier.
But you know, I think that those schools are going to be screwed too. I mean, you know, you sit there and see Ohio State.
Who would you rather be?
laying off.
Paying for those scholarships, though.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is the big schools are not exactly in the greatest financial position either.
No,
we
they're
have
not.
seen evidence of that with them furloughing people and throwing, you know, people out left and right. I think it's unsafe to assume that they're just going to be able to pick up where they left off. They're going to have hurdles to crawl up to. I think you even said it, to quote Alex Johnson. I'll paraphrase here a little bit, but you know, a lot of expense, a lot of money coming in, a lot of expense.
Yeah,
they might bring in $300 million a year, but man, when your budget is, you know, 299,
right,
it's hard. It's just a grander scale.
I look at it from the physicality standpoint. I know when we went through the playoffs, you know, in 3 consecutive years that the athletes were talking about, especially with the, you know, fewer guys on scholarship, how they were tired at the end of the year because not only did you go through your 11-game schedule, you went through a 4-game playoffs, and then Christmas was the next week. And you weren't exactly excited to go jump into spring ball 6 weeks later. What does the spring ball even look like? Do we have spring practice next year? Is it the second half of the football season? It will be for some people. And will these guys say, you know what, I've been dealing with this stuff for too long as far as the corona, and then having to start practice, stop practice, start practice, play games, maybe not. And a constant wear on your mental state that do they want to come back and deal with that again if it's still an issue going forward in 2021?
I bet you'll see at least one school, and I'm not saying it's going to be this one, but I'll say you'll see one school that says you can come back. We're not paying your scholarship.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of that.
You got a place on the team. Your year of eligibility is there. But as far as the scholarship goes, sorry, you're on your own. We've got those dollars committed somewhere else, or we just can't simply afford the extra. Yeah. And you know, how could you get upset at that with where team, if they were coming from a position of financial strength, okay, suck it up and do the right thing. But when you're talking about the difference between giving those opportunities to one particular team versus all of the other issues you're going to have down the line, that's a hard thing to justify.
Some people take the route of 6 years to graduate from college, but they're not always on scholarship. And, you know, how are you going to look at it when you're a school with limited resources that says, you know, we're going to let you come back for your 6th year of being on scholarship so you can possibly be our quarterback or be a great wide receiver for us or something like that. That's at some point you've got to have a little bit of academic integrity get mixed in there as well.
But I'm sure that's a coach's conversation too. You're going to fight for the kid that you still think can help you.
Right.
You are going to, I don't want to call it discourage, but you're not going to be as excited about somebody that's just going to be like, you know, you were the 3rd tight end out of a 2 tight end mix, and you're still going to be, plus we're bringing in another kid. Come back if you want to. Here's a clipboard. And to the kid, do you want to come back to that? You know?
Yeah, I know. It's tough.
I mean, I think there's a lot that goes into that decision.
Yeah, maybe it's a lot more. Maybe it's a situation that works itself out a lot more than I thought. Maybe it is. That certainly.
You got your pessimism on today, so I'm sure we're just shutting it down.
I could see 2 or 3 years of roster building that could be a headache for a lot of these coaches, and so that's certainly interesting. So, Robert Hogwood, the numbers 23, 32, 38, and 71 are retired App State football numbers. What the heck is taking them so long to retire 14 hashtag? Are there some stipulations behind the scenes for that to happen? As it stands now, where do you see Zach Thomas ranking your opinions among the App State QB greats? First thing, why haven't we retired 14?
There were some things. Let's see. After we retired Larry Hand's number, maybe. Who was Larry Hand the last one?
I thought it was.
Yeah, Larry and Dino were back to back, but I can't remember which one was first. But anyway, we got some heat. Really, internally from football was where part of it came from, and it got into the conversation that the difference between retiring a jersey and retiring a number. Because and this sounds ridiculous, right? But this is actually one of the arguments that came out of that. Said if you keep retiring numbers, we're not going to have enough numbers to go around, and we're going to get into this whole dual number thing, and it's just going to be confusing. Stop retiring numbers, retire the jersey. And the jersey means you retire a jersey. That's a singular thing. You can still use the number down the road. That's probably most appropriate for 14 right now. As much as I think some people will hate to hear that, but you look at the lineage, and I mean, it's hard to tell Marcus Cox no. But on the other hand, that could be a dual thing, kind of like the Cubs did with Ferguson Jenkins and Greg Maddux. They retired 31 and gave it to both of them. I think you could do that and be done. Well, they retired Maddox's jersey because he came back to the only team that treated him right. But whatever.
Oh boy.
Ooh. Ooh.
I just saw Alex's little Adam Witten facial hair starter kit curled up there.
Look, I'm sure 10 years ago when y'all were having that conversation, DJ, that you were thinking about, God, who don't we retire off some of these teams? And
it was very difficult. Yes. And we had that exact conversation, and it was Kevin, Armani, Corey. Yeah. I mean, those three probably started it and then kept going down the line.
He's in the Hall of Fame. That was done appropriately. All those guys are going to be, if they're not, any of the main players at least.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what I wish we could see, and maybe it'll be part of the new facility by the time it's done, I don't know, is a better way to honor the guys that have been honored. I mean, those little signs that were put up on the east side bleachers back in the day was the cheapest alternative. That was back in our FCS days when it had to be the cheapest alternative sometimes. I think that's an excellent opportunity within the new facility to go back and kind of like Alex was alluding to earlier, teach some of the younger fans some of the history to know that John Settle has to be in every conversation. I don't care what level we're playing right now. He has to be in the conversation for one of the best offensive players ever to play here. Hands down, without question. And to do that, you need to be able to, properly showcase him, Dino, Larry, any of those level of players, Dexter, certainly. There are a lot of people that don't know the impact that Dexter had here, and Dexter's another guy that could play on this team right now and be just as good as he was,
and be the best defensive player on the field,
and just like John Settle could have, I think, as well. I mean, I think some of those guys translated, and they need to be shown as such. And Dino could have, and I'm sure Larry could have. But
I'm going to rephrase sorry, I didn't realize. Go ahead, AJ.
No, I if my decision was final, I would retire the number. I know that first of all, I agree with everything DJ said about the practicality of eliminating numbers that can be used. Totally understand that. However, I think you can attach Marcus Cox to it too. The Yankees have retired number 8 for 2 players. I know that's Major League Baseball. It's 2 different things, but whatever. I digress here. I think you retire number 14 because there will never be, in my opinion, a singular player in App State that made such an impact from a cultural standpoint, but also that propelled us. His play and his greatness propelled us in everything. It's a perfect storm. All these things were building before Armani got there, but he was such a difference maker, and he was such a difference maker with Michigan, and that propelled us where we are. I think that's special enough to say, this is it. This is the last one, and here's how we're going to do jerseys from now on. You round it out. You make him the final one. You honor Marcus Cox too. I think that's appropriate since he is one of the greatest we ever had. He logged a ton of time, and he was one of the guys that were one of the few bright spots in that transition when it was ugly at first. But he was great, so I'm not just, those aren't pity votes, but if I had the power, I would say 14 is the last one. We're doing it. The historical significance is too great. It's too great to not acknowledge it. And then from now on, we'll do the jersey retirement. And to DJ's point, I could not agree more. You do a better job with the new facility and with the new infrastructure that we have to honor the great players. And you keep doing that. You keep doing special things with numbers, recognizing numbers without necessarily retiring them. I'm a sucker, though. I'm a huge Armani fan, so I'm biased. But I would make known this is it. 14's retired. Thank you, and we'll do something different going forward. But
I think the hard part to that, though, and where we would get in those conversations back in the day is there is always another player that comes along right when you think that we've just seen the last one. That's like, well, why not him? Marcus Cox is a prime example of that.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's the
who
best.
would have known that you just hand off a jersey a couple of years later to a guy that all of a sudden turns into, again, a program shifting dynamic offensive weapon. How do you not honor a guy like that? And then when you're ready to say, okay, Marcus and Armani are it, then who's, when Deshaun Davis, goes into the Hall of Fame in a few years because he got the BGT bump. Then what? So it's part of it. I will agree, and I'll go backward a little bit and say that and I don't want to just throw this department in this way. I think there probably should have been more thought about that going forward, about how you're going to handle that. Remember, until 2004, and really the spring of 2005, there was only one retired number, and that was John Settle. Dexter, Dino, and Larry all came about from 2005 on.
Yeah, that's short-sighted.
And the thing that we got heat for then was that we went from 1 to 4 really, really fast.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, wait a second, slow down. You got to think about, all these other people. There were a lot of people that argued Gil Beck's number should have been retired because of the level of play that he had, but also thinking about it more, and where we kind of got off of that a little bit was on his post-career accolades were more about what he did off the field than what he did on the field. But easily the smartest guy that ever played at App for sure. And you look at what he did as a professional, and you look at what he did on the field, he could have been considered for that. Sure. I think but you have to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a no-brainer. If you're going to do it, you've got to do something for him more than what has been done at this point.
Yeah,
when you've got a facility to actually do it with now.
Right.
Back when we did 04 with Dexter or 05 with Dexter and all the other ones, Dino and Larry came in the midst of all the construction and renovation and all that kind of stuff. You've got that building over there now with no roof on it. You got an opportunity to showcase some things on there that people can see because there's no roof on it. And you could do something really classy in a way that's there for everybody to see. Why are you laughing?
I'm smirking.
Nothing. The roof is on fire. No, that was last year's song. I'm sorry. That was last year's song. I still say though, you can create a system going forward to honor numbers and still say this is it. And here's this new system of how we're going to address program changing players going forward. But again, I'm a mark. I'm an Armani mark. So I love this, and Robert's always asking questions like this. So I appreciate it.
It's good. It's good stuff. And then the second part of his question, real quick, I'm going to kind of rephrase it just to make it a little bit shorter. He basically asked, where does Zach Thomas rank in your opinions among App State quarterback greats? I would say he's in the top 10. Top 5 is arguable, and we'll see where that goes the remainder of this year, and things like that. Because I think it's easy to say that, once you see what he's done and on the big stage, when he's had the opportunity to, and when he has been able to finish a game, he's been pretty darn good.
I think Zach's being hurt by this year big time. I think a lot of his legacy can be helped, obviously, by having if the rest of this year goes smoothly as we can expect, and whether or not he's going to be one of the guys that we want back as an offensive weapon with an extra year of eligibility if he even wants that. I think, like I said, I also think it's interesting how he's coming in at a time when App started getting a lot of depth, and it wasn't just here's the guy. Hey, we need someone to take over for this guy that started for 4 years. Come in here and do it. It seemed like we went through a stretch of that with. I know Richie doesn't exactly fit that mold, but go from Richie to Armani, had the DeAndre Presley and Jamal Jackson kind of, but then here comes Taylor Lamb to say, bail us out, be good for 4 years. But by the time that Zach got around, he had less eligibility, but he had more experience, and he came out really, really hot in 2018 as the starter. But he's really only had 2 full years. The thing about it, though, he lost 3 games in 2 years, and you might even go so far as to say he's only lost like 2 true games in those 2 years because he had he took 2 snaps in one of those losses.
Right.
So I actually think it's kind of one of those things, to use a baseball analogy. He might be, depending on how this year goes and if he comes back, a little Sandy Koufax-ish. Sandy Koufax didn't pitch a lot. He had actually a very short career. Didn't win the 300 game mark when guys were throwing innings all over the place. But his candle burned really, really bright. There's no question that the most important offensive piece of our team in 2018 and 19 was Zach. When he wasn't on or he wasn't playing, we were exposed pretty bad, and that was really obvious. So this is an interesting question because of how impactful he's been in such a short amount of time. And the teams he led were undeniably great. So, and he doesn't lose. So I don't know, top 10. I don't think that's giving him proper respect. I don't know if I'm putting him over. I'm definitely.
Well, it's easy. It's an easy question. Are you putting him over Taylor Lamb right now? Is right now his body of work enough? And I'm not talking about talent. I'm talking about body of work. 4-year starter versus what is going to be a 2.
He won the game that Taylor could never win.
I do.
Yeah,
I love Taylor Lamb, but Taylor didn't beat North Carolina and South Carolina.
And he probably
that's what it gets measured on. That's what
that's unfortunate, but yeah, you're right.
Losing to Penn State.
Well, what did we all say? What did we all say after
positive.
the Penn State game? What did we all say after the Penn State game?
We got a heck of a quarterback. We're set for 3 years.
So I love Taylor too. Everybody does. I mean, who in the world say anything bad about Taylor? Nobody's saying anything bad about Taylor. And Taylor will tell you, like, Zach's more talented than I am. I think that Taylor, in watching how Zach plays, I'm not saying – I think Zach's actually a really smart player too. I think Taylor did a lot of things that were really underappreciated. Still today, I don't think we appreciate the kind of little things he did to help us play to his strengths and help us win. But in my humble opinion, Zach is an offensive weapon, better than Taylor. And DJ's point, man, do we win? Do we go 13-1 with Taylor Lamb last year?
I'll flip it around on you a little bit. Let me flip it to you this way. Is Zach Thomas as successful as Taylor Lamb was if you flip their lineage? If Zach was here first and Taylor was here second, is Zach a grinded out QB like Taylor was that could handle the transitional years and make good players great by being in the right spot at the right time and make it work? And could Taylor play the finesse team game where he had elite talent around him because there was more of a recruiting pipeline and he could dial it around to playmakers because that's all he really needed to do. He had more weaponry around him than Taylor did, with the previous group. So could you flip them and get the same results or better?
I think, I think it's going to be the same. I don't think that the Taylor era would be as successful because of the surrounding talent. It would be obvious to me that Zach was the elite player on to take away someone like Marcus. I just don't know if we had the 3-headed kind of group that we've had here with Hennigan and Malik and Corey Sutton for one solid year. I don't know if Taylor could distribute the ball as well and win these tight games. We didn't just beat North Carolina and South Carolina. We beat them by 3 and we beat them by 5. Yeah. And I think that has something to do with it. Can he get that third down when we needed it? Did he have that quickness to turn a 4-yard gain into a 50-yard sprint down the sideline? I think it's great questions.
It's a great question. I do think, though, actually Zach Thomas doesn't get enough credit being the cerebral player that he is. I'm not saying he's as, what they say about quarterbacks that maybe don't have the greatest arms. He's a great game manager. I don't think Zach gets
boat steerer.
Say what?
He steers the boat.
Boat steer, yeah. But I don't think that Zach gets necessarily as much credit for being that type of player. I don't think he's as talented in that way as Taylor, but it's not a binary situation where you have all the talent or you don't. I think he's kind of underrated in that way, to tell you the truth. So I think, oh man, it's such a great question.
Great clock management in that last drive before half against Campbell. I mean, he executed that well.
No, yeah, and that's not facetious at all. That's serious. I think we'll be able to better answer this in a couple months.
So let me
agree. The jury's still out. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As of right now, if it ended right now, if the whole season was canceled, God forbid, DJ, what would you say? Where does he rank? Zach Thomas.
I agree with Charles. Top 10, maybe not top 5 yet, but he's got a chance to change that. The downside to that, though, is that I think if he would have been successful with the original schedule, he absolutely would have changed that. Are you going to judge the body of work that he has remaining and what has gone down previous to say that was enough? I mean, so I think he's a top 10, borderline top 5.
I think he's definitely top 5. I'll definitely put him in the top 5. Charles, it sounds like you're in between that on the fence.
So who are you kicking out of the top 5?
That's a tough question. Yeah, it's a tough question.
It's especially tough.
I mean, Brownie's going to want to be in there.
Well, I didn't watch.
Statute of limitations on his career is almost over. So,
so 14, 7, 11, 12, and then who's 5? I called out numbers. You know the names. Nobody that we've seen the last 20 years.
Yeah. It's also hard for me personally because I frankly haven't seen, like, I came around, I was a student in the Armani era, so everything that I've seen of everybody we're talking about, not those guys in previous, has been on like DVD highlights and, you know, grainy film. Like, I've never seen a Steve Brown football game. You know, I trust that he was great. I just haven't seen it.
Because he told you.
Talent aside and playing level aside, I don't care whose position 2 through 10. You give me the ball in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes to go and 70 yards to do it, I'm taking 14 all day. And I don't care who else is on that list.
Nobody in here is going to disagree with that one for sure.
No. Real quick, so I know we love telling like stories, just some anecdotes. Murphy would tell this story better. My buddy Murphy, he's like I kind of alluded to earlier. He's a little bit of a heckler. So 2009, he traveled to the Richmond. And it was, you know, I wasn't there. DJ wasn't in. Charles, you were there. 2009 Richmond. Right?
We were freezing.
City Stadium. Last game in City Stadium.
That's okay.
Track.
That's a night. The night I knocked the window out of the press box.
Because
Why?
he tried to open it.
I opened it and it fell off its track and went straight down below me. And it was so rinky-dink high school there. The concession stand was right below us. And had the gates been open, somebody would have died from either the glass or the lead in the paint from the window. It was scary.
So how thrilled were you to have that window not there for the rest of that night?
It was great.
Yeah.
Well, we opened the windows anyway, so yes.
So anyway, Murphy tells a story how he had seats at that Michigan game behind the Richmond bench, and they were talking trash the entire time. And how much I'm going to ask you guys because I don't remember. I watched this game on TV. So how much time was on the clock for that final drive? Wasn't it like 1:09? Am I getting that right?
It wasn't a lot. It was less than 2. Yeah.
It was under 2 minutes. All right. So anyway, he said Murphy said one of the guys he was heckling the entire game turned around after sub 2 minutes, like you guys said, and we had the ball. The guy turned around, he started talking trash, and Murphy said he looked at him and did his watch. He did a watch thing, like tapped his wrist like that. And the guy's like, "What?" He said, "There's too much time on the clock." He said, "There's too much time." And the guy was talking back to him, "Yeah, whatever, man. Appy State, whatever." Talking much trash. And as soon as there were a couple of big plays, we all remember the game. Go YouTube it if you want to. We get down to the line, and Murphy called up the guy's number. Let's say his number was 18. He's like, "Hey, 18!" And the guy turned around. He pointed at his watch again. He's like, "It's too much time. There's too much time on the clock." And the guy turned around and just kind of like hung his head. And that's when, of course, Armani threw that pass to Matt Klein in the end zone at like 150 miles an hour. But yeah, that's part of why he have his number.
I don't know. I still to this day don't know how that ball got through that Richmond defense to the end zone. There was no space, and somehow he made that.
What had more force, that pass to Klein or Klein getting hit the next week at Montana?
Klein getting hit in Montana, I think.
Yeah, that was a pretty good decleater there.
Man alive. I don't know how he got up. Wow.
Yeah. Anyway.
That was a great team.
That was
to go back a little bit, that was the team that I felt like deserved a better fate.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
because
It's
they were
Shakespearean.
they were just as good as 05, 06, 07. They were absolutely of that same caliber.
I totally agree. And that's why whenever we get asked on like Twitter or whatever about, what are your painful moments, whatever, it's always 2009 and how that season ended. And it's mostly because of what you just said. It just feels like that wasn't supposed to happen. Like that,
if you were void of the pacifier or gave a damn back in 2000, that's kind of what it felt like then too.
It's very similar. The game, it snowed. It actually did the opposite. It was like it snowed all in like Bath, DJ, and then cleared up in 2000. Am I getting it right?
It snowed. They had to clear the field in the middle of that game. I remember that. It was clearer toward the end, and it was a day game too.
I did terribly on an exam because I was worried about that game. I mean, I went and took it and came back to the TV as fast as I possibly could. And redheaded Jimmy Ferris will always be someone who's in my nightmares.
I think that team was as good as 05, 06, 07. And had they actually played to their, to avoid the mid-year slump there that those app teams of the late 90s and early 2000s always fell into, except for 95, you're playing Montana at home versus away. You probably win that game. And I think they win the national championship that year. I think they were better than Georgia Southern. Should have beat them on the road. Had they had a healthy quarterback on the road that year, they would have beat them. Remember, Reeves got hurt.
Yeah.
Jeremiah was out. Burchett got hurt, and Reeves got hurt on the last play or second to the last play of that game through the interception that ended up losing it. So,
it's amazing that 2000 team, when it did as much as they did, considering they couldn't get one quarterback to play much full games.
Oh, sure.
Or appear in it. Because it was just every week AJ was like a guessing game, like who's got enough juice in the tank to play quarterback.
There was the one game that Jeremiah came back and got hurt, and Burchett with street clothes, changed out of his Levi's, put on some pads, hadn't practiced all week, and still went out and annihilated Wofford.
It was one of those like, you're not hurt enough.
Yeah. Joe, that was about the time Jerry Maguire came out, and Joe was Cush. I mean, he was totally Cush. Without a doubt.
Wasn't
We all
smoking
had
Joe for
Cush
nothing.
Lash by the time it was over, but Joe was the guy there for a minute.
We're going to get into Brandon 2's question. I guess, AJ, you've probably seen it.
Yep, sure did.
So I feel like we've talked about this about 5 years ago. So we can do it again. Would y'all like to see an expanded CFP in the future to 8 teams and a G5 automatic bid? That's question one. I think it's inevitable. I don't think that there's anything wrong with the current setup, but if college football people think they can make more money, they will. And I think it's just a matter of time on that.
I agree. I'm fine with the current setup. I'm not hung up on, and I don't find sorry if this sounds like I'm attacking someone specific. I'm not, but my fandom does not rest on App's chances of getting into the most rigged and already, predetermined whatever playoff in college sports. I think it actually kind of works, and I think most of the time the top 4 do make it. I do think it'll turn into 8 teams because of exactly what you said, Charles. It'll generate so much money. I've never been a huge gimme seed, but whatever.
Schools need the money. I think if it's going to happen, it's going to happen soon. There's going to be a renegotiation of that TV deal to get it now, because
Sooner than later. Yeah.
Schools will and it's
we'll
not as much about the top as it is about what they can give a little bit farther down the line. That'd be a great lifeboat to send if you really care. If you're there.
This is the part of the question, the second part of the question, which we discussed before. G5 playoff between the top 4 G5 teams be more intriguing for G5 fan bases, ellipses. I'm still not on board with that. I think that creates the division that we don't want. And whereas if we're going to, expand, that's an opportunity to make significant amount more dollars for the school, the conference, and so on. I think it creates, what exactly the P5 wants, and that is for a split to occur so they can make their own rules and not have to worry about the other 64, half the FBS 64 teams.
You want this first or me?
Well, I think, I mean, I'll say this before DJ can speak to it way better than I can. number one, from a practical perspective, if a G5 playoff could generate the same revenue or comparable, the same or better revenue that we get from this current system, then yeah, I prefer it. Sorry, I do. I prefer it. And I got to say, I hear the argument of this is the thing that keeps us united. This is the thing that doesn't split us apart. I'm sorry. I don't see how we're not already split apart. There's a reason we call it P5 and G5. I think by having, I just have never, and I'm not saying people have made a bunch of bad arguments. I've just not been convinced that in a scenario, in a world where a G5 playoff can generate the revenue, it is about revenue. I'm sorry, it is about revenue. Where that can generate revenue for the G5 programs and keep that money in or even increase it. I don't see how that would make that big of an impact. You could still have your bowl structure. You could still have P5s playing G5s. You could still have all that and still play these elite matchups against peer institutions. And I understand that there are moments in time where teams upset the world and the Boise and the Oklahoma. I get that. I understand it. I appreciate it. I love it. I love app to be part of that and all that good stuff. I'm just telling you, I would prefer that if the money matched. And right now it doesn't. But there you go.
So deep cut alert here. To quote the lady who's working or who's I think it was let me get the reference right here. To quote the lady who was Eddie Murphy's girlfriend at the end of Trading Places standing on the island when asked whether we should have lobster or cracked crab. Can't we have both? Why can't you send
what a quote. Wow.
Why can't you send your best team forward and have a playoff with the rest of them? And the reason I say that is because Ohio State's never playing in the Camellia Bowl, boys. This is different. It's different. And as long as you still have the slappy.com bowl that all of the G5 teams all go to with their whole conference, it's pulling names out of a hat, whether it's a Weed Eater Bowl or a Camellia Bowl or whatever, it's all the same game. And it's basically the same money going to the vast majority of those leagues. So why not do something creative to say, rather than watching, the same 5 teams for a 5-year stretch play in the same games roughly or pretty close to it, why don't you get a little bit more creative with it and say, all right, you're going to take your top team, you're going to throw them into that 8-team playoff or 4, whatever that is, the Access Bowl, what have you. But then create something with the other 4. I would rather watch a playoff if all things are being what they are, and you are going to have a rare opportunity if you're not that one elite team that you can set aside and let them be your competitor at that level. But if you're not going to have an opportunity for the rest of them to do that, and App was a perfect case of that last year. I mean, they deserved a better game, sure, but that's not how it works. Yeah. So if they're not going to change how it works, figure out something that's better for the product. And I think that is to take elite teams and play them against each other, not best team out of the Sun Belt against fourth team out of the MAC who doesn't give a crap and is going to get drilled. And it's just, you write that script before the freaking game is over.
And we have every year.
Right. There's no opportunity to survive in advance. And I think that's the one element that I miss. I mean, it's the only element really I miss about the playoff structure is that, man, it felt really good to finish off a win on Saturday and know you're playing next week.
Yeah, at home too.
There's nothing like that at the. I mean, even the 14 playoffs not like that. I mean, it is a little bit, but it's not. It's not that same. You got to go. You got to turn around and make it work. And it sucked for those players that played it, but man, you hoist that trophy at the end, and I think all those players would argue that there was no greater feeling in their athletic career than pulling that feat off. So be creative. If it's about building brands and building recognition and trying to become that team that gets to advance out of the little 14 playoff and go up and play with the big dogs, then you got to do something to make it more watchable than it is right now. Because let's be honest, unless App's playing in one, and I get all of you guys are football fans out there, but how many of you can really sit there start to finish of midmajor.com, grasshopper, weed eater, whatever the hell bowl it is, and watch that start to finish and truly be entertained the whole entire way?
It's hard to even be entertained just by watching, Sunbelt team number 5 play wherever. I mean, watch, Georgia State versus Western Kentucky in and the Cure Bowl is it's a tough watch. But let's if this can make money, why not?
But I think you also have to be realistic. You're going to get mid-tier money out of that situation.
Correct. Exactly.
Nobody's investing in that.
And I think where people are scared when they hear the word playoff is that it's not just 4, that 4 becomes 8 and then it becomes 16. And then it's like, well, we can just have this completely separate tournament and you're not invited to the table. And I think that's where people's hesitation really comes down to, as far as like having a G5 playoff.
And what you've got to understand too is the P5s could care less about what we're talking about right now. We got our thing and that's it. And maybe I think there are going to be some financial realities that come out here in the next few years. And in my mind, there are 2 things that are primed up, sitting on the tee, ready to get smacked down the middle of the fairway. One of them is a break off, because those teams have a separate structure. And they have proven it even within this, even within the way that they can ramp up health and safety standards around a league like the ACC. And you know that the Sun Belt is partly in the situation that they are because they can only afford to test so much. If you're talking about things about student athlete welfare in the middle of a pandemic that are that fundamental and there's a separation, there's a separation. Okay. The other thing that is teed up is G5 realignment, making it regional, making it more cost effective at a point in time where schools are really going to be sharpening the pencil to figure out how they can even operate an athletic department, let alone be successful. It's the easiest thing that they could do. You got to put ego aside. You got to understand that Conference USA was a cool brand back when Alex was still eating the Lucky Charms that he's got on the thing there, but it doesn't matter anymore. It's all the same league. It is the same league with the exception of one conference, and they have been much better and more effective of positioning their competitiveness and as a league and positioning their brand to build their league profile. And the Americans just different than the rest of. I think there's a third separation, right? There's the P5, there's the American, and then there's the rest of the G5.
And that actually bears out, DJ. That bears out if you looked at budgets. Athletic team budgets athletic programs budgets, you could pick out that's a P5, that's a P5, and then you can even go that's an American school and then that's a G5 school.
Yeah,
you could actually do that. You could pick out, because a G5 school, well, unless you're Monroe, their budget's like $7 million. But then once you get above Monroe, you're looking at apps around 25 to 35 or whatever. Then you're looking at like ECU and the ACC. They're around 55, 60, somewhere around there, maybe 45, 55, whatever. I mean, you can actually do that. And so, why do we think that the AAC stands out and they have the best reputation and they flirt with, hey, we're the P6 or whatever, which I don't really buy. But it's absolutely resource driven.
Go ask Tyler Buckwell. Cincinnati's different than App State.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is. That doesn't mean negatively, there was I remember one time, it was right before we played East Carolina, the second time. So that would have been what? 12. Yeah. So I remember Rick Beasley standing in Jay Sutton's office, and we were talking about playing that game. And Rick was, we were a lot of discussions about what was to come already. And it was like, hey, we're going to go play this game. We're going to show them that we're right with them now. And Jay's like, no, we're not. Like, don't say that. Like, in a year-to-year competitive scenario, sure, we might be able to go down there and compete with them, but it's about more than that. It's about resource. It's about recruiting. It's about budgets. It's about facilities. It's about all these things. And he's like, man, we're light years behind them right now. Now, good on App, and credit Doug a lot for this. I mean, App's caught up really fast with a bunch of teams that were way, way out ahead of us when this whole thing started. Marshall, save the game. I think you could make the argument that App has passed Marshall by in terms of facilities, in terms of brand recognition, in terms of national recognition. And they were the ones that we were trying to model when that all started. And have a better start to the game. Don't play bad special teams, and you've got the win that proves that. So
it means a lot.
I like Jason Hutchins' idea, the Myrtle Beach Bowl presented by Wings. That's huge.
Yeah, people toss it. Yeah, I've been waiting to hear what the title
on King's level, but he's close.
It's not far away. If we'd had a normal season this year, someone's playing in Myrtle Beach. It's probably a Sun Belt team, and I would love it if it was like Arkansas State.
Can we get Robert Duvall as Jerry riding in the front of the roller coaster on the strip though?
Oh, that would be great.
Hang on a second. I do have to mention this, Charles. I don't know if you were around, but when we were at the hanging around those Marshall folks tailgate a couple weekends ago, I was talking to a Marshall grad, and we were all being friendly and whatever. And somebody mentioned that Myrtle Beach was, in their words, West Virginia heaven. They said, and I have mentioned in the show several times that Myrtle Beach is just flooded with West Virginia license plates in the summer. When you go to their retail stores like the Broadway at the beaches, that kind of stuff, you see a lot of Clemson, South Carolina, North Carolina State, North Carolina. West Virginia is always thrown in there. So that's
the Midwest place to go.
Yeah, Ohio. I mean, they need a beach.
Yeah,
I mean, they don't want to go to Jersey.
In Chicago, that's the only beach they know about is Myrtle Beach because they market the crap out of themselves up there.
I'm just saying,
Myrtle Beach and Hilton Head.
Right.
Here you go.
So, there you
All
go.
right. We can talk about Myrtle Beach a lot longer. Cameron Taylor, how about something on the effects of the pandemic and lack of attendance on students who normally support the football team, band and cheerleaders under normal circumstances? They are at every game in all types of weather. We never feature those folks, but they are part of the athletics program and game day experience for the fans.
Absolutely. They're paying the bill.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
the students are the backbone. I mean, as much as we hate to admit that to a certain extent, student fees is always a hot topic. How do you fund your athletic department? Ours isn't all that, but it's a good bit. And
it's a lot.
It would stink not to be able to go to a game if I was a student right now.
Yeah, I think though that I mean it's they've got to be part of that 2100, and I think you'll see the athletic department make good on that. They know, and they're you're also yes everything that was just said there, but you're also insulating your future fan base too, and you got to give those people an opportunity to become a fan and not have a jaded experience. So yeah, you make that happen. I think they've tried to engage as much as they can, but it's a pandemic, man. You can only do so much. I did get a laugh. I got a text sent to me about halftime of the game. Somebody said, "Hey man, I'm watching the game on TV. It looks like any other game after the start of the third quarter." Like, dang, deep cut. Ooh, truth.
Was that Robert Hogwood? Did Robert Hogwood send that? That sounds like Robert.
It is the freaking truth, man. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
Oh, the buzz wears off sometimes.
Yeah.
Hey,
I hope it works out to get students back in the. I think it's a great opportunity for athletics to revision how they engage students. For those, especially in this year, let's say you're able to have more fans at basketball or whatever. I mean, students are going to be dying to go to something, right? And, if they can't get into the cottages. So it's an opportunity to do something.
I hear the road up to the cottages is never full. It's just the parking lot.
They had an overflow crowd up there. If the cottages on Saturday would have been Kid Brewer Stadium, they'd have set an attendance record.
Yeah. I saw the snap maps.
Part of the reason why we are where we are, folks.
So you know what they should do for basketball? They should wait until the very middle of the season and then name the student section.
The next question after next, the question on deck is a basketball question, but we're going to go to Jay Neal first.
Are we doing this show until the Louisiana game?
Yeah.
You would think. I mean, that's
like a telethon. It's like, man,
it is.
Man.
They're donating for sure. What would you guys like to see upgraded next at the Rock? I want to see it done first. I want to see how it all flows, how you walk around Plaza.
Wi-Fi.
That would keep people in the game after halftime.
Wi-Fi for sure.
That and White Claws.
Should have been done years ago. I tell you the story about that. We got a proposal back in 2013. Charlie was still there.
Wait. I can't wait for you to tell this 30-minute story and then complain about how long it's taking. Go ahead.
You knew that was coming.
I'm not even going to say it.
You're not even going to say it. He's done.
No, let me tell you. All right, so here it is.
But for real.
So back in 2013-ish or so, that was Charlie's last year, I think. We had a company come in It was through a relationship with App State IT. They had a company that specialized in large venue Wi-Fi systems and deploying all the hotspots and all the technology and really focusing in on the back end application of that to make it worth the investment for the venue. So we had this company come in that actually outfitted Wi-Fi for Gillette Stadium and a number of NFL venues, and they did a walkthrough. They did several weeks of study and came up with a proposal to put a robust Wi-Fi network inside Kidd Brewer Stadium. And the thing that was the coolest for us was that it offered a real-time analytics, a back-end feature that would allow us to watch in real time. If you downloaded the App State Game Day app, watch you in real time interact with different areas within the stadium and be able to send push notifications out for things like concessions deals and wait times at different places. I mean, think about what the application of that would be like now for like the food truck area and the beer areas and things like that. But it truly allowed us for the first time to have a scientific way to watch what our customer response was to our in-stadium atmosphere and have the ability to kind of converse with them in a way, in a real-time fashion. And it was about a $1.1 million project. And that was about the first time the end zone building came up as a serious project and looked like it was going to start moving forward. And there were some of us that were really trying to encourage wrapping that upgrade into that project and saying, $1.1 million on a, making the $36 million facility 37 really doesn't make a difference. If we're trying to raise 1.1 million right after we got into the FBS and we were getting our tail kicked that year too. So it was like the wrong time to start a capital campaign. But man, that the features in that thing would have revolutionized the way that IMG, athletic marketing, all of it could have interacted. The game day experience, being able to do things real time on the board would have been unbelievable. And unfortunately, it was another thing that came down to money. So it can be done. The modeling is there. It's a really difficult get because of the amount of concrete in that stadium. But some of the things that have changed have been helpful, like having the other end zone facility to be able to triangulate a little bit better would certainly be helpful. I hope they
concrete
sometime. What's that?
What's wrong with the concrete? How does that factor?
There's a lot of it.
There's a lot of it, and it can impact signal strength. Part of the conversation, unfortunately, got into aesthetics, and it was like, well, how many of these little repeater devices do we have to have all over the place? And they're like, well, with the amount of concrete and steel and other, some of the geographical issues that are involved with that stadium, the mixed levels. Not everything was on the same plane. They were like, you're gonna have to have a lot of them. You're gonna have. I think the quote was somewhere in the 70 range, 70 different Wi-Fi hotspots, and it's too many. Like, okay. It's like, well, we can put the cow back out there, and that was the answer. And fortunately that worked well for a while, but it just couldn't handle the load. And I mean, we couldn't communicate as staff back then. We knew that fourth quarter, my phone would like vibrate off the table because every text message that I got from the start of the game till then, from staff, from fans, from whatever, all came in at the same time. And that's usually when the students went to Klondike.
And then in those days, you couldn't get a text message to go through or check a score or anything like that until about that
That's
time.
part of the experience. And the reason why I think it's a
Right.
solid investment now is because they've got to have a way to get people back. It's really convenient. I haven't done it in a couple of weeks. It's really convenient to sit at home and watch those games and be done with them when they're over and tailgate out in the yard and do all your stuff in the confines of your own home. And then when you're done, you're done. Now, that's not the game experience that we all know and love, but you could take one tailgate's worth of expenditure and buy yourself a really sweet TV and mount it outside and break out all your stuff. And, you watch Harrison and whoever do the game and you're at home already. And Bobby can play his soccer game and all that kind of stuff. They got to find a way to make that stadium experience the place you've got to be. And it was that. And I think in some ways it still is that. You solidify it by making it a place where
You gotta be proactive.
in the picture. Yeah.
You gotta be proactive. Yeah.
You got to
That
make
was
people showcase what they're doing.
A lot of the NFL stadiums across the country have really improved Wi-Fi, lighting, that type of experience because of fantasy football, really, and they really wanted to be able to check their teams and check their lineups, and they do scoreboard updates. But that didn't tell you what your team is doing,
Right.
So, I mean, that may not exist like it should at the college level, but you got to have them something. It's got to be something between the time the ball is not in the air or being spotted. And I think it's very important to get people to stay involved. I think obviously a little bit of alcohol last year. We 1 year of that. I think they'll probably figure out that it's probably going to really help quite a bit. But
it also helps out so much on the operation side of stuff when you can actually use that to your advantage. And I'm not talking about the marketing side of it. I'm talking about the operation side of it. To be able to remember the colossal disaster. What game was that last year with the whole mass exodus and the storm came through and everybody
Coastal Carolina.
Yeah. So, I mean, imagine if that's a push notification. Hey, weather's coming in 10 minutes, start to move, versus the chaos that ensues when there's a PA announcement followed by locked gates and all that. Or, hey, stay in your car. We're going to send you a push notification when it's time to come back. Don't have to worry about tune into the radio broadcast, listen there, but we're going to bring you back in when you need to. It's just a different way to communicate. And it's like when the PA system went out for the first game, they didn't have any way to talk to anybody. Now, luckily they didn't have anybody there, but if there was a situation where you lost communication, it's a perfect way to be able to message stuff to people. I mean, it's got so many different layers to it. So one day.
Greg Peterson, looking forward to basketball. What are you looking forward to besides playing in general? Are there any players you want to see take the spotlight?
I'm looking forward to Frank Eves being on that show.
On Big Brother?
Yeah.
What is it? Big Brother All-Star or something like that? Yeah.
I think it's Amazing Race, isn't it?
Amazing Race.
I haven't yet.
He and his dad, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I've never watched it.
With D'Angelo Williams as well, former Panther, Carolina Panther. Greg, I'll answer it real quick. I don't think these two are going to. We got a lot of new players on this team. I think I just want to see, the development of Kendall Lewis, James Lewis, Donovan Gregory. Just see what these recruits have done. See if they've improved their game. We know Justin Forrest is good. That we know. We got three seniors, a lot of minutes last year. I want to see how we replace those minutes and add to that lineup. So I'll take the basketball question.
No.
AJ's
you won't.
You
take the basketball.
know something about basketball?
You jerk. No. No, I want to see how we replace O'Shawn. I know that we have a transfer from James Madison. I know that we got a score from California. I want to see how we replace him, who I believe was our MVP last year. And same thing. I know that Kern's got some size. We got I think 6'11" kid out of Charlotte. How's he going to do?
Quarantine's been rough on coach.
What?
Like, gosh, Alex, that's harsh. Dude's been in quarantine, man. He put on a few pounds.
It's just the way it came out was funny. He said Kern's got some size.
Poor guy. Ripping him.
I'm not gonna say he's been visiting Blue Deer Cookie, who's, by the way, getting a free shout out. They're not even a sponsor, but Kern's he's
no free ads.
No, so he no, but also and here's the thing too. Donovan Gregory wasn't healthy. I think he had a foot issue most of last year. But the coaches really liked him. I'd like to see how he bounces back if he can stay healthy. But I really like the effort that he showed. But I don't think he played full speed last year. So right. I'd like to see that too. But I'm still, I was really pessimistic about O'Shawn leaving, and then obviously Isaac and Seacat, especially Seacat, they got better as the year went on. I'm more optimistic now. I think we've added a lot of talent.
Hey Charles, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Time is obviously not a factor.
Not in BGP land.
If you had one App State basketball player from the last 20 years that you could take to a slam dunk contest, who would it be?
To a slam dunk contest.
Yeah, or maybe better for if you could watch one App State basketball player from the last 20 years dunk a ball one last time in front of a packed house, who is it?
You're not gonna like this. Jacob Lawson's up there. He had some vert. Chris McFarland had some hops.
I'll give you 25 years. 25, so we can go back to the Buzz one.
Okay, so you want me to say Sean Alexander or maybe even a Kareem Livingston?
I was going to throw Marshall Phillips.
Yeah, and I didn't get to see him play a lot, but yeah, that's another good one.
I know Marshall, Chris Mack, and Jeremy Booth.
Jeremy Booth.
Jeremy Booth
can have his arms down, sit outside the perimeter and wait for the ball to be thrown.
Wait for the ball.
Throw it up.
Wait for it. And when he gets it, he's shooting it. No.
Oh, yeah,
matter
it's going
what.
up, baby. It's great.
It was awesome, Ryan Clark. Oh, you remember the Mac mask night? Made all the little Chris McFarland masks. That was huge.
Man,
we made those in my house. That was.
I wish we did cool stuff like that. Still, I wish we treated basketball.
Chris Mack. Well, that part of that was those players, man. They were just so into that. Like Chris McFarland was born for that. Tyson was like that. DJ was like that. They just loved it, man. They embraced being, kind of the guy, and they were awesome. They were awesome to watch.
I think it's a great question from Todd Solomon. What do you miss most about the traditional season? And now that you see what you have missed, what are you going to change if we get to have a normal season next year? So we're at your houses, we're watching the game. Maybe you got some friends over. You're not tailgating. You're not in the stands. What about game day do you miss the most? I think that's what the question comes down to. I'm going to say it right now as the people. That's our community. It's not. Look, it can have a dozen friends over. That's one thing, and it's great. But when you don't get to, you go past through Raleigh a lot, and you can go talk to 20 people, that you only see on Saturdays sometimes. Yeah. And then when you're on the way to the stadium, now that we don't have the stadium lot, that's a little bit different. But you could stop by 8 tailgates and say hello to people. I think that's just that's something that I miss quite a lot. And then, of course, the people you sit around. You only see those people 6, 7, 8 times a year. And it's tough.
Yeah. For me, without question, it's the community factor in the tailgate time. Because that's where you really, you have bonds with people based on a common interest. You might be so different from these people in everyday life, but you share a common love for something on Saturday, and everybody's in a good mood for the most part, unless the weather's terrible. But anyway, I digress. So the tailgate, the pregame time, when you see people, Charles, exactly what you just said, that you don't really see in any other context, and you're just in a good mood. That's great. I miss the roar of the crowd, to tell you the honest truth. I really do. Like what?
I'm laughing at DJ.
What's funny about that?
I miss the roar of the crowd.
I do. Because what you said.
Taylor Swift over here.
Yeah, there's 2 drops of my guitar over there. No, so DJ, what you said about it being convenient to stay at home is actually really true, especially people with kids. I've found the last couple, the 2 home games we've watched, I'm sitting around going, wow, this is simple. This is easy, put the kids down or whatever. But there's during the game, I really don't care to the people sitting a couple rows back, whatever. I'm there to actually watch the game, and it's great high five with your friends. But you could do that at your house too. It's kind of uncomfortable having kids at a game. Your son's beating down on you when you're on the east side and whatever. But there's something can't beat a really loud stadium, and I miss that. I really do.
I miss Bueller's Dream and jacking beers out of James Milner's cooler when I stop by Big C's tailgate.
It's my cooler.
Yeah, that's right. Milner doesn't drink beer. He drinks beer. That's right.
Either way, it works out. No, I tell you what I don't like is the game's over and it's 3:30, and the wife's like, "Hey, you ready to take care of the kids for a little bit?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." And miss that parking lot time afterwards, and maybe being able to divert.
She's not a viewer of this show.
I know it is. It's very lucky on my part. So
my wife doesn't even know we do the show anymore.
Doesn't even notice.
She just takes all that sticker money and goes out and buys fancy cars.
She's drinking a Sprite with that koozie right now.
If Sherry Everts could keep one football fan cutout in her office at the end of the season, who would she select?
Cut out of the construction worker from the end zone.
I love it.
Why isn't that guy on a cutout yet?
He needs to be. Maybe he was a cutout.
We know who that guy is too. We know who that guy is.
Oh yeah, yeah. I heard it was the guy that drove the ambulance away in 2015.
Yeah, that's who it is. That's exactly who it is.
I really wish we could have found out who that person was.
Yeah, for sure.
That would be
Did we not,
great.
Charles? Did we not find out who that was? Didn't somebody tell us who that was?
I didn't really
Making
trust
that
that.
up.
I thought Alex was going to say it was Dustin Kearns because he had gotten some size.
He's like, what?
Okay, so Walker
I
Shelton.
can't believe you're cutting on the coach like that. It's
I
terrible.
know.
He needs to
Walker
stop making-
Shelton, if coaches missing a game becomes a theme, then what are the contingency plans behind each? Clark, Peterson, and Jones, I assume Clark would call plays if Peterson has to sit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How few coaches can you have in a game and still have a game?
Hey, Varsity Blues, Kilmer was the guy on the sidelines with the headset, and we never saw anybody up top. They were the only ones, and they went to state. Moxon and
Johnny
Moxon was able to
Tweeter.
coach and play. Man, you just need some players. Just let them go out and call their own plays.
I remember a former defensive line saying a lot of times during the championship years. He was like, there were some games we got there and we struggled because the coaches were just overdoing it. And of course they would say this, it's like we got tired of it, and for about the entire third quarter we just called our own plays. We never got chewed out, and we started getting sacks and all this stuff, 3 and outs and all this. Of course, that's how.
Of course, that's how it works. Never works out. We started calling our own plays, and we gave up 21 points in 3 minutes.
It never happened.
The coaches weren't chewing us out because they were just like, "See."
Alan,
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know the answer to that question.
I
Sorry.
don't either. That's there's
a
some
great question.
protocols. I'm sure
It's a great question, and it's a relevant question. I just don't
I
know.
lived near one of the coaches that was in exile the other day, and it was really interesting to watch how many miles he paced in his yard during that game. It was. I heard the halftime speech though. It was awesome.
Go ahead, do it. What's the halftime speech? Uncensored.
I'm not going to get into that. You don't.
That's a different
It was a
tier.
passionate speech.
It was a passion. Okay.
Yep. And it was funny because the coach said everything that happened. He's like, the defense is really tired right now. You got them if you go out there and go right now. They're on their heels, and that's kind of what happened.
Yep.
Like, oh look, prophetic from the porch down the road. So kind of cool.
So AJ, cue up the Twitter or the email account that we use for one person.
Man, I don't
as we get to Alan Parker, really starting to notice some concerning flaws in the last couple of games from a certain individual: lack of energy, slow anticipation, and little to no effort. That being said, what does Connor Coker need to do to get back to midseason T retrieval form, more conditioning, more slushies, anything? So we don't have dead air.
of all the equipment managers, of all the student equipment managers on App State football team, I mean, out of all of them, out of all the ones I've ever known on the staff of App State football, Connor Coker is one of them.
We do have one. I know this is we all know this is just a jab.
I think it's a great inside move by Connor Coker to be on a Pepsi campus.
Ooh, that's tough. Pepsi
I
campus.
call him Cokehead for a reason.
Yeah,
because he's crazy, not because he does not do cocaine. I just want to say that.
The big Cheerwine guy, to be honest. Loves his Cheerwine.
Well, he loves red dye in his drinks. Is that not right, Charles?
Who doesn't when they're on Bourbon Street?
That's right. Okay, so here we only have 2 on the Twitters, which is good. We have a new 333 Club member. That's great. His name isn't in the handle, but I think his name is Tommy, if I remember correctly. So he's brand spanking new. I'll get his name down eventually.
Sure,
he says, yeah. So he says Coastal or Arkansas State this weekend. Last year's matchup came down to a game-winning touchdown drive within 30 seconds on the clock to give the Wolves the win. Which team will create more buzz within the Fun Belt this year? I mean, honest with you, I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm gonna say Coastal just to piss DJ off. I'm gonna say Coach Jamie Chadwell will defeat Blake Anderson.
Last I checked, I think Coastal was like a 3-point underdog in that game, and it looks like they are. I'm pulling it up. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get there, but Arkansas State 3.5 still. So Arkansas State's lost the game. They lost a tough one. And actually they're giving Coastal the kind of the edge here. So it'd be very interesting. I think Arkansas State's offense is vastly improved if they can just start the right quarterback. I'm very curious at how bad Coastal can be if one of their whether it be the running game or the passing game gets kind of limited a little bit. Can they fall back on that other side and still be successful on the ground or in the air? I think it's freshman quarterback too for Coastal, so that's another thing they have to deal with. Beating Kansas and beating Campbell ain't exactly lighting the world on fire, even if you are 2-0. So it'll be interesting. I think it's the game of the week in the Sun Belt because it might be the only one that gets played.
Beating Campbell like there, Charles.
It's not like, hey, we're gonna argue about we're setting the world on fire.
I mean, just wow.
Wow.
I like the fact that Charles roots for his team, Love
Hey,
it.
I do.
Oh, really? Does he, David? Wow.
Yeah.
What a
He
bold
only leaves games when it snows and they win.
And I'm not driving.
They don't call him the right field foul pole for nothing.
Did David? Did you see the guy? I know Charles did. The kid from Kansas that said there's a reason we rescheduled Coastal before the Coastal game. That's pretty sweet, wasn't it? So Jim Cox, he submits a message into the Satchel. We've had limited success defending against the option in recent years, specifically against Southern. It looks like Coastal's on that. Is of that persuasion as well. How can we be more effective? I want to push back against that a little bit, Jim. I actually don't think our defense played terribly against Southern the last 2 years. Our defense didn't. Right? I mean, when we got beat down there in 2018, didn't we give up like 310 yards? I mean, it's not that bad.
It was a slow death in that game, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But what he's probably referring to is what killed us last year is
we gave up two huge, big, busted plays.
Two big plays, and that's the difference. That's what Southern wants you to do, and so, but that's the difference in those games. Coastal is not really like an option team; they're more of a run-pass option team. They want to keep their options open. So it's not like they're got a fullback going up the A gap and they're just pitching outside every time or having guys in motion like that. Their running game is strictly just
teams are unimaginative.
Trying to be unimaginative. I think they're very actually imaginative on offense. It's like it's all pre-snap. Who's the option to? Which side of the defense are we going to attack and see if we can kind of get them outnumbered on a certain area and see if we can get 4 or 5 yards. And then after they lull you to sleep with all this East-West crap, they hit you on a big one and see if they can score one. So,
okay, so. David, it's great that you're here with us in the hashtag BGP Mail Satchel because your best friend and ours, Danny Stapp, who I believe you referred to as Dewey Decimal last time you were on.
Good old Dewey. Love you, mean it. Stat Master. I got one of those when the gym closed during quarantine. Put that in the garage so I could work out and not look like Dustin. One of them Stat Masters.
A Stat Master, just a Stare Master.
No, Stat Master. So you can be like Dewey. You flip through the card catalog.
All right. So because we're reuniting you with your best friend Dewey Decimal here, Mr. Danny Stapp, you're going to answer this question first. If you're the coach of the Mountaineers, what do you do with your lineup when other players return from quarantine? Are they automatically reinserted, or do you go with some of the younger guys and ride the hot hand? That's actually a really good question. DJ, address your buddy.
Well, there is that old coaching adage that you don't lose your job because of an injury. I don't know how quarantine works into that. It is an interesting evaluation deal because I think you did see some things the other day that warrant at least more playing time. I don't know that it means a starting job right out of the gate, but I definitely think that it begs you better come back and play for sure, because you got some people that have now, again, no disrespect here. These guys went and played against a team that they should have had success against.
Yep.
So maybe this earns them the opportunity to put it out there against a team that might be a little bit more their equal. So I wouldn't want to come back slow.
Right.
But I think he
Here's
did the job.
here's the question, and it's something that we all know is that COVID attacks everybody differently. So if you're talking about a linebacker, do they lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks or something like that? You can't do that. You can't just throw them back in the lineup. They've got to be conditioned first. It's not just, hey, you know what? Some guys were just achy. Some guys had a cough, and so it depends on how severe it is.
I think that's a better point. Is that you don't know how long those guys that played well last week are going to be needed whenever the Louisiana game gets played. They're going to be needed because, to Charles's point, you can't just assume that they come back in mid-season form. The ones that have been sick and the ones that have just been out. So hopefully that's where that depth comes in. I think it's great to, I'm sure I wasn't the only one that questioned why play the game last week. Especially after Campbell announced they were banging classes and it somehow didn't affect their football team. That just begged. It was just like, you got 18 guys out against a team that almost beat Georgia Southern. Why do it? But why you do it is why you saw the result of being able to get some kids some time that might not have otherwise. And maybe you built your depth up a little bit.
The coaches ultimately know who they trust. And I have a hard time believing that a performance as great as these guys played, to David's point, as great as they played, I have a hard time believing that, they wouldn't go back to the players they know what they could do against peer competition just because some guy I shouldn't say just some guy, but because of what someone did against Campbell. No disrespect to Campbell, but it does show you something.
It may get you the opportunity to show it. When you get that one opportunity for a rep or to spell somebody, maybe it gets your number called, and that's what you're hoping for. You're hoping that gives you the opportunity to come crash the party.
That's a great point. Great point.
And it's what we need right now, honestly. Next year is going to be roster turnover more than likely. And we need to find the next guy. And when's a better time to do that than right now?
Hey, I know he's a polarizing figure sometimes on this, but that's how that's how Patrick Blaylock got his shot.
Absolutely.
Filled in for somebody, showed out, got a scholarship like 45 minutes later, and he was the guy there for a minute. But he got the opportunity because of something that he was able to show himself enough for them to say, we want to see more.
Right.
Worked for him.
All right. Well, that is the hashtag BGP Mail Satchel. Again, thank you to Styles Roofing for sponsoring. And I know we're 2 hours into this, and it's everything I dreamed of, having David Jackson return.
Yeah.
Having David Jackson.
I am so tired right now.
Oh, whatever. You love it. You love it, and you know it. And this is, like I said,
it's more high tech than it used to be. You got marshmallows in there and everything.
I got what?
Like a multicolored marshmallows. Yeah.
For those of you that will never watch the video, so we're streaming this in our the 333 Club, our private Facebook group, and people don't know it, but I'm actually streaming.
Anybody's still in here, they are to be rewarded with one free sticker from adamcaudle.com/AJ.
There will be people who want their stickers. So.
Promo
code Lucky Charms. No,
Adam's arms are so tired from carrying Alex with all this merchandise all throughout.
It's true. No, it's true.
Oh, man.
I can't get Adam on the phone anymore. I'm trying to talk to him about a new thing, and he's just
of course, because he's like, how else can you use my abilities as a graphic designer for your own profit?
Hey, listen, this is actually a great example of listen.
It was a shirt. Yep, that's about right.
Talent wins here. Come on, Adam Caudle, check him out. Give him a
Brown
shout.
wanted to know if your logo had changed any because he said his merchandise that he'd received from you back years ago was so faded now he didn't even know if it was the same mark.
What?
Brownie, he said, hey man, ask AJ if his logo's changed because I got that little flaky deal on my little chest logo there. I was wondering if maybe he had a new mark by now.
I haven't sent him anything. He's, it's
you got to show up to get sent stuff.
Wow, decisions are made to show up. You're right.
He asked me how Taylor Lamb was doing the other day, and I just can't.
I know he did. He called me and told me he did. He said, hey man, talk to your boy AJ. Think I got under his skin a little bit. I asked him how Taylor was doing.
He didn't do that, by the way. I just made that up.
No, what? No.
DJ feels like it sounds pretty legit to me.
Seconds after he got off the phone with you, and he's like, I love talking to that kid. I can just get under his skin.
That did not happen.
Yeah. Okay.
It's working.
Yeah, okay.
It didn't happen. He did not ask me about Taylor Lamb. He did ask. Actually, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say what he asked me. He was really funny though. But anyway, David, thanks for joining us. The Boone Leprechaun, the head of the Chamber of Commerce in Boone. Thanks for everything you do. You're doing a lot of cool stuff, giving us updates on keeping Boone healthy and being your crabby self. So I appreciate it very much.
Thanks for letting me join the pessimism hour here. Go. Hope to see y'all Wednesday night.
Do you?
You can have Alex's seat. He's already turned his away.
Yeah. Thank you, David. Always appreciate
Bye.
it.